All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Good
My name
afternoon.
is Slim Shady. I'm just kidding. Wait, we got some more people coming. All right, here we go. Hey, the price went up. $10. $10. You're late. $5 ahead. It was free until y'all got here. All right. No, they weren't having none of it, were they? They're like, get out of my way. I was going to snap. All right. Hey, good afternoon, folks. My name is Jerry Ochoa. I'm manager of operating practices. Welcome to North Platte Bailey Yard. It is the world's largest classification yard. We run approximately 10,000 cars daily. My counterpart today will be Mr. Kyle Benson. He's a manager of training operations for the North Platte Origin program. His primary function in life is to make sure trains get out of town on time and to the proper destination. My primary function in this game we call life or railroad is safety. I primarily deal with safety, remote control locomotives, engineers, and conductors. So as we go along, y'all pop off, have any questions, just feel free to shout, yell, whatever you like to do. So obviously we started the Golden Spike here, so we're going to take my left. The big tower there, that's our superintendent's building. Be coming up on your right hand side. That's where all the engineers and conductors report to work every day, allegedly, and on time, supposedly. So as long as they're within 5-10 minutes, we're good. But we generally have everyone on time. So we're here where it says Union Pacific Railroad. On my right-hand side, that's where the engineers and the conductors will report to work. On every locomotive leaving North Platte, east or west, you do have an engineer and a conductor. We do not run one-man operations inside North Platte Bailey Yard or on the North Platte Service Unit. Continuing on my right here, we have what's called the east departures. All trains that we trim or we build going east. There's 6 tracks over here to my right. You see the black tank car. There's 6 tracks. We build trains up to 8,000 feet in length. So you figure 8,000 feet in length, and you average anywhere from 10 to 15,000 tons per train. So we run them long, we run them heavy, we run them hard. So that's our goal at Union Pacific Railroad, is to run everything on time. Obviously our goal is customer satisfaction 100% of the time. We have different types of cars on the right. We'll start with the one that says KIX drawn on there. That'd be your T-box cars. That's generally a refrigerated car. That'll can have frozen vegetables, fruit, meat. We have several different things. So here at Union Pacific Railroad, we haul everything and anything. And that includes up to and including, but we haul rocket fuel, we haul nuclear waste, we haul rocket motors. Obviously, I don't know if y'all have ever seen the military train. We haul the military train. All those trains obviously have high priority coming through North Platte. We want to be as careful as we can with any high priority material to get them in and out of the community as quick as possible. And be as safe as we possibly can with them. So continuing on my right there, we have, like I said, east departures, trains up to 8,000 feet. We do run what's called remote control locomotives inside North Platte Bailey Yard. Again, it's a 2-man operation. We do not run any 1-man operations inside North Platte Bailey Yard. So the RCL locomotives themselves are controlled by a box that's attached to a vest, which is attached to your chest. The maximum speed on an RCL locomotive is only 15 miles per hour, but that it's a set of 2 locomotives, but that it can haul up to 15,000 ton with 2 locomotives, and that's all controlled, like I said, via remote. So you'll see green signs posted throughout the yard, and I'll try to point them out to you. And those are for remote control areas. There may not be anybody inside on the point of the locomotive. There may be 2 or 3 cars to the west. So bit of, essentially they're ran unmanned, but there is someone around the area there. I like to brag about I'm a drone pilot, so I get to fly drones. Kyle gets all mad when I fly my drone in his area because I always find this guy's doing stuff wrong. So we're gonna go up. We're gonna take a left here. Left. We're gonna go across what's called the east departures. As we're going across, if you look back behind us, you're gonna see a locomotive with a flashing light. That's gonna be our remote control locomotive. That locomotive that's there, that's called East Departure 1. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's a remote controlled locomotive. So that employee, what he'll do now is he'll pull down, he'll tie his train down with handbrakes, cut away, and the car department will then do their operation on the train. Over here to my left, this is a loaded coal bucket. What they're doing is they have a full inspection done on the east branch. The car department's job is to inspect each one of these cars, and if they find bad orders that they're not able to repair within a reasonable amount of time, they'll just set the car out, loaded coal car out, and continue on with whatever else they have in the train. So this 322, this is our remote control locomotive. So like I said, he'll be tying down the train. You guys want to listen to Kyle's conversation? Oh, no. He said no. He must be in trouble.
Make sure it's leaving.
He's telling people what to do. All right. So, like I said, on your left-hand side, on my left, your right, they're setting out what's called a bad order to what's called the Oscar track. What the Oscar track is a track that's specifically designed for bad order cars. What'll happen is we'll set out bad order cars, maybe wheels. On the top of the cars, there's a hinge, and if it's not positioned properly, it'll be bad order. So I don't know why nobody ever messes with it, but it's bad order according to the FRA. So
All right, so this shack up here on the left-hand side, it's that blue tank is basically a giant air compressor. The way we air test cars here in Bailey Yard is we pre-test them, meaning that we don't have to get the locomotive on the train before we start air testing, and we can buckle it up. The car department blue flags, that's their protection. That way they're able to lock it up, blue flag it up, car department works it, and when I say work, it means they do an outbound inspection, they lace the train, and get the brake pipe ready to go, then they start shooting air through it with the compressor. That way when the road power comes out of the shop and it's ready to go, we're able to back it on right away, and then the road crew is able to hop on the power and knock brakes and go. Anyway, so something interesting about what's going on the right-hand side of the road, this is what's called the entirety of it is east origin, or the east hump. So the hump is specifically just a giant hill, and it's called inline, meaning that's my world. I work in the east hump and the west hump. I deal with terminating trains, breaking them down, building new trains, and originating them, launching them on time. So everybody heard of the word timetable, right? Like the old railroad has the timetable. You got the stopwatch, you got time zones. All of that was originated because of the railroad, right? So we're very time-oriented. We're trying to be very timely. We build our schedule based on when a train's supposed to depart. You can't really make up a whole bunch of time, but you can lose a bunch of time on the main line. So that's why we stress launching a train on time. We try to make our meets, east and westbound trains with siding. You try to make your meets based on that departure time. That's why it's so important to launch on time. The east hump is an inline hump, meaning we take a train coming in from Cheyenne, it terminates in the receiving yard, we break it down by humping it, or classifying it, pushing it over the hill, using gravity, letting gravity do the work, we pull the pin, and those cars roll down into the bowl. Then we build a train, or we trim it with those trim crews that Jerry was talking about with the remote controlled engines. We trim it out down to the departure lead, departure yard, and then the road crew hops on it once it's air tested, powered up, and they'll either launch a single rail, 8,000 feet max. We can build a total of 10,000 feet conventional, meaning if power's just on the head end, we can build a 10,000 foot train. If we use distributed power, DPU, meaning head and middle locomotives, and you can have multiple on each consist, then you can build a 15,000 foot train. So on average, the trains departing out of east departure is about 120 to 150 cars. Largest I've launched is 270 cars, 15,000 feet. So I can put that on my belt buckle of a 272 car train. Hey, get with the program, man. Let's see. So, yeah, that's the east hump. Over here on the west, this is on the north side of the yard. So this is the main line, right? You got 3 mains, 1, 2, and 3. Triple main track controlled by signals, almost like your stoplights, right? Green means go, yellow means slow, and red means stop. So west side is what's called a side-by-side hump. And that means that basically when you look at the yard in north to south fashion, you've got the departure yard or the forwarder, then you have the bowl with the hump, and you have a pullback on each end, and then on the south side you have the receiving yard. The benefits of this, the benefits of a side-by-side as opposed to an inline hump, is you take up a lot less real estate. Obviously out here in North Platte, Nebraska, that's not quite as big of a deal, but the benefit also is that you're able to build a bigger receiving yard and departure yard tracks. So, you know, the east hump was built back in the 50s, and this was newer. It's not even close to being the newest on the system, but it's built in the 70s, so it's got more technology driven. Whereas that's the largest hump on the system, meaning the highest hill that we have on the system. This, as you can, when we come by it, you can look at the difference between the two. You can see that the hill is a lot more gradual, so we have a steady push to the, and then it drops off. So we used a lot more technology on this side rather than over there. It's just a straight hill. So yeah, side by side, you got trains that are coming in from the east that we end up deporting west. We build trains for Fresno. We build trains for Roper Yard in Utah. We build trains for Pocatello. We build trains for West Colton, LA. Shoot, anywhere in between, honestly. We build 10 trains a day. Each hump takes in about 15 trains per day, and we consolidate that traffic, we sort it out, and we build 10 trains per day at each hump. So I'll depart on the east side, I'll depart anywhere between 1,300 to 1,500 cars on average. On the west side, I'll depart between 1,600 to 1,800 cars a day on average. So the west side departs the most cars. Well, we build the largest trains on the system over here on this west side. On the east side, we build the second largest trains on the system. So we get pretty good. We get pretty good at building complex trains going west, because not only are they large, but they're also some of the toughest grade in the system. And there's not a bunch of big yards until you get to the coast. So we're building trains for other locations. You know, there's been a lot of change in the rail industry lately, and we talk about how we provide value for the system. This west hump has put other places out of business, so to speak. We built trains and pre-block for other locations, so that when it shows up in Stockton, California, we drop off some cars, and then the train keeps going. Those cars are already switched out just for that location. So that's the value of having a hump. That's the value for pre-blocking those cars.
Any questions?
We go all the way up to, we'll go to St. Louis, we'll go to Memphis, Tennessee. That's about as far as we'll go east. North Little Rock, yeah, but I think technically speaking, geographically speaking, Memphis, Tennessee is the furthest east we go. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
pocket change. That's pocket change. We make that a quarter. I mean, managers. So the locomotives themselves cost about $2.1 million, and that's per locomotive. The highest grossing right now is our intermodal. So the intermodal trains is what brings us most of our capital. It used to be, I don't know if you heard the old adage that coal is king. So we used to make 1.5 million per train on coal, but due to the natural gas, things like that, we don't run as much coal. So that's an average, if that makes sense. Answer your question? All right. Any other questions? No? All right. No, those are just here. So he asked if the remote controls go state to state. And no, the remote controls stay in the North Platte Bailey yard only. So we have, like Kyle was saying, this is Kyle's area over here. This is the East Origin program. This is where the world's largest classification yard is right here. So you have 64 tracks or 64 single rails that you can put cars in. So we try to average between 600 to 800 cars in a shift. We run 24/7, 365. So we try to hump or bring over the hill 2,400 cars in a 24-hour period. So you take that times 7. I don't have my calculator, but it's a lot. So, go ahead. No, we're just in the continental United States. We don't go outside the states. So I've been trying to get them to build something in Cancun, but that ain't going so well. So I volunteered to go. All right, so on our right, coming up to the right up front here, that's our east hump. As you can see, what coming down the hill there is what's called a box car. So as it comes down the hill, it's loaded into a list, into a computer, and the computer itself will flip one of 64 switches, depending on where it needs to go as far as rail. And as far as speed, everything is gravity driven. So it'll slow down by what's called retarders, and all it is, it's basically metal on metal, grabbing the wheels and slowing it down. So at the top of the hill, you have what's called a pin puller. He actually pulls the cars. If you can see, there's like a black scoreboard up there, and on the black scoreboard, it'll have the last 3 numbers of each car. The responsibility of that pin puller is to ensure that the last 3 numbers of the car match, and it'll tell them an M or a U. An M means multiple, it means 2 or more. A U stands for uncoupled, that'll be just 1. So if you have like an MMU, that'll be 3 cuts. That'll be 3 cars, or 3 cuts. I'm sorry, 3 cars. So, like I said, it's all gravity driven. You guys can hear that squealing. If I close my lips, you can hear some squealing. So that's going to be your retarder slowing that car down. Okay, and I guess we're going to go park over there for a little bit. On my left here is what's called the East Run-Through. This is our locomotive fueling sanding facility. All these trains here on my left, your right, all those trains will stay together. They're what's called a run-through train. It'd be coal train, intermodal trains, auto racks, anything that's going to stay together, continue on east. So what happens is the trains will pull in onto the rack. They will fuel, sand, clean the windows, clean the toilets in the locomotive, sand them, ice, water, everything they need to continue their travels east with. So in the locomotives themselves, in the front of the nose, I'll find one, but there's actual sand that we put for the traction for the locomotive because it's metal on metal. So when it gets wet, as ice, rain, anything like that, when you get metal on metal, you start to slip. So you throw the sand down for the friction, so you can get traction on it. So it'll always sand on what's called the leading wheel. So if we're going east, there's a sander right in front of the lead locomotive wheels. So it'll throw sand actually on the rail. So if you really want to make your buddy mad, you hit the sander when he's down below working it. It's just, not that I've done that, but just saying. So we're gonna continue on, but up the top of the hill here, it's what's called the sheep jump. Why it's called the sheep jump? There's a sign on the side of it. It's in French, and allegedly it translates something into sheep crossing jump. So it's always been called the sheep jump. So we're gonna stop, take a few minutes at the top here. People on my left or on my right. Yeah, right. Y'all be able to take pictures. You can on both sides, but then we'll swing around, come back through, and folks on the other side will be able to take pictures as well. All right. So if you look at the first ones here, these weird looking ones, these are auto rack cars. Then you have what's called coal cars. We have 8 tracks here. This is be your east run through. Again, it's a sheep jump. You see the orange cars where it says Hapag Lloyd. Those are intermodal cars. Those will generally come from overseas. Those are your high-end cars. Those will have your TVs, your Fitbits, your Apple, iPads, all the expensive stuff. And the reason why they face what they face is they're supposed to put the doors near the end of the car so you can't open them, but somehow in LA they figured out how to get them open. So I'm just saying, if y'all need something, let me know. Call me later.
That sign.
I'm just kidding. No,
Jerry,
so, go ahead.
that sign says sheep's leap over the Platte.
There you go. What is it again?
Sheep's leap over the Platte.
Sheep's leap over the Platte. So that's what the sheep jump came from.
Yeah.
So this gentleman here is retired from the railroad. That's why. You know. All right. So we'll continue on down the hill, and we'll go down here, turn around. So straight ahead of us here is going to be our coal operation, where we actually run our empties. We run our empties west to the mines. Over here we have 13 tracks that we're able to come into. So where coal has declined in the last years, we're able to bring trains in for intermodal purposes. Mr. Benson here is able to use some of the tracks to build his trains for the West Origin program. The big building coming up is going to be on our left here. This is a small repair facility where they can do some repairs on the locomotives. Small things like sander brackets, axle alternators, just small items like that, brake shoes, brake heads. They're not able to repair anything big, just small, easy repairs or routine maintenance.
Alright, so over here, this is west run through. That means westbound traffic, through freight traffic. That's stuff that's just stopping by to say hi before we go into the west coast. The majority of the traffic is coal, right? Area 51 coal trains a day. That in its heyday, obviously we're not doing that as much. But, right, 51 and 24 hours. Anyway, long story short, we spend more time on our trains by plan over here at the West Run Through, meaning we try to get them cleaned up. When I mean cleaned up, I mean like all of our repairs taken care of rather than just patch jobs. We try to get the power cleaned up, so we'll put fresh, we'll take an entire consist off. If we got bad motors, we'll send them straight to the shop rather than let's just make something that'll, band-aid it to the next stop type thing. So we'll really clean up these trains while we're working on a round trip, right? So these are empties. They're fixing to go to the mines and load up. That way they're ready for that full load coming back down off the mountain, heading to the utility. That way, once they're loaded, because once they're loaded, the customer wants their product, right? Anybody here use Amazon or UPS, right? You don't want your stuff when you click the order button, right? You don't want to be sitting around waiting for it once you click the order, right? You don't care about the UPS truck once he's gone and dropped you off, right? So anyway, our job here is to get those trains ready to go for the full trip. The east rack, or the east run through, is strictly supposed to be more or less a gas and go, quick inspections, patch jobs only, more or less your pit stop on your NASCAR, right? So that's kind of what's going on here. Up there, this is kind of interesting, that remote control engine up there, well, that engine that's up there, that's the spare yard. And that's mostly coal cars up there in the spare yard. We flat switch, meaning we don't use a hump to classify cars out there. We switch them out by kicking them. We give them a start, pull them in motion, pull the pin in motion, and let them roll under their own power. We do that most places on the system, but here that's unique. So the spare yard is designed to classify different utilities cars, coal cars, so that then when we do have trains coming in from the west side that are short, right? The average coal train is about 150 cars. Some utilities take more and can take as many as we give them. Some utilities have a very specific amount in terms of 70, 80 cars. So, but the general amount is 150 cars per coal train. In terms of and so the purpose of the West Run Through is also to add or fill those trains out to 150 cars. So if something's coming in short, meaning 140 car train, we got an opportunity to add those cars on the empty side rather than after they're loaded. There's no sense in adding cars after they're loaded, right? There's no revenue there. So yeah, every time we fill a car, that's like $3,000, just cash money in the bank. I'm sorry. Right, that's what they're doing. They're grabbing those cars and they're classifying them in the spare yard, getting ready for fills.
You can look at these cars. What they'll do is they'll pull them out west. They'll pull the set of cars out west. So she asked, what are they doing here? If you look at your right-hand side there. So what they'll do is they'll pull them high west, and then they'll separate them by just pulling the pin and let them roll freely up to 4 miles an hour. So a lot of things that we didn't talk about, or a lot of misconception, is that that UP owns all these coal cars. When in reality, UP owns very, very little coal cars. They're owned generally by the plants themselves or by private investors. So what we do is we just haul them for the people. The Sanders right behind you. Sorry, I missed it. Oh, the Sanders on that locomotive. So if you look where you see up here to the right, where you see the 7741, right on the side of the locomotive there, you see the 7741. And right in front of that is a box that's built into that cab, and that's where the sand is held. If you look kind of on top and you see kind of a tea kettle type of thing lit, that's where you actually put the sand into. See on the rear there of that 8982, or on the front, I'm sorry. On the front, there that gray part, kind of looks like a tea kettle. That's where they put the sand into. So they have a machine, when they put it on the rack, it just puts it right on top and throws it right in there. So again, this is the sheep leap over the Platte, or whatever, what do you say? Go ahead, sir. 12 hours. So he asked how long the shift is for engineer and conductor. We're going to take a quick, go ahead and y'all can get some more pictures if y'all like. So the answer to that is engineer and conductors are only per FRA available to operate for 12 hours unless it's a national or Union Pacific emergency. Then you're able to operate for more than 12 hours. We try to get employees home within 24 hours, because obviously if you live in North Platte, we go to either Marysville, Kansas, South Morrill, Fremont, Nebraska. We want to get you back home to your family as quick as possible. So you're able to, alright, so we try to get them back as quick as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes the traffic slows down, and they are away from home up to 36, 48, sometimes 72 hours. So it's an unfortunate thing, but we can only operate on the on the volume of traffic. So, all right, everybody ready? We good? All right, here we go. All right. So again, just continue on like we said. So see if we can see it. Dang it, we missed it. So if you look back to the back there, you see that car rolling by itself, all by its lonely self. He just kicked that car. So all he did was pull the pin and it rolls free, and you hear big bangs late at night. So just a quick thing, like we said, we operate 64 tracks in the bowl. We have 2-man operation. You have a helper and a foreman. Scariest thing is 3:30 in the morning, feeling a tap on your shoulder in the middle of the bowl. That'll wake you up. But just for if you're ever in the bowl, don't throw your lantern because you may need it for a weapon later. So not that I did it, but allegedly that's what happened. So the hump jobs are very, very monotonous jobs. You have to be task oriented because you're by yourself, you're pulling a pin, you walk a circle, you pull a pin, you walk a circle. So it's very, very easy to get off task, but it's a very, very dangerous job. That's why we try to promote safety 100% of the time.
So the best pin pullers are usually about 5'6" to 5'8", and I say that because if you're 6 feet like myself, you gotta end up leaning over, and you're leaning over and you're pulling the pin and you're kind of wiggling it until it breaks, until the gravity takes over for coming over the crest. So you're bending over and wiggling the pin lifter repeatedly. So you've got a 150 car train that you're trying to pull pins on, and you do about 3 trains a day, so you're pulling pins on about 220 times a day, because we pull in cuts of 2 or 3. So 3 if they're empty, 2 if they're loads. So the best guys, just if you're shorter than that, then you're pulling up with your shoulder only, and if you're taller than about 5'8", then you're leaning over to one side and kind of doing that. But anyway, if you end up pumping the entire cut off without missing a pin, meaning you have to stop, back up, wait for the slack to roll in, because each drawbar is cushioned so the drawbar is independent of the assembly of the car, so that then when the cars hit or when they're on line of road, it's kind of a slinky effect, very similar to your shocks, just laterally. Your shocks on the car, right? Very similar effect going side to side. So it's sometimes when you're pushing those cars against the locomotives up against the slack, and you're pushing that over the hill, then sometimes it's hard to get that pin to go and the car to brake. So if you stop and whatnot, then that's not good, obviously, right? The quicker you get the cars over the hill, the better. But if you hump the whole cut off without missing a pin, then that's considered a ringer. So there's your additional railroad jargon right there.
The court loaded, but I'm in
What you're looking at right here, obviously, is the east hump, but these tracks kind of in a triangle shape. This is called a Y. This is how we turn motors. So you can't just turn the steering wheel on a locomotive to turn it around, right? And we don't have a turntable here. So how we get locomotives going originally from east and then turn to go west is we use them to come this way, back them down on the north leg of the Y, down the other side, and then you've turned your locomotive around entirely. So in any major yard, you're going to have a Y like this to be able to turn power from one direction to another.
All right, so we know we've thrown a lot of stuff at you so far. I know you guys probably head spinning. Y'all have any questions? Anything we can answer? And then we're going to stop on the other side here, I believe, take a few pictures. On the other side, you don't see the employee, but you will here in just a minute. That's going to be your pin puller. So you'll see him doing, like Kyle said, you'll see him doing like a lifting up jerking motion. That's going to be him lifting the pin to separate the cars. I believe it's Troy. Troy's been here at the railroad for probably 25 years, almost 30 years, and he's worked at this hump for probably the last 15 years. So Troy's probably pulled more pins than anybody in this yard. So Troy actually trained me, that's why I'm so awesome. So just saying. So,
All right, so Kyle, that's great. You pull the pin and you let the car roll. How does it not go out the other end, or how does it not stop too short? Well, once you let the car go, you can't make it go any faster, right? But you can make it go slower. So what we have is we have 2 hump leads, and we have what's called the master retarders, and we have final or group retarders. It's actually a really cool system if you take a chance to look, if you get a chance to look at it. So this blue hose pipe here is air. It's compressed air. That compressed air, and you can see these retarders next to the track. They're inside the track, and they push against the wheel. They change their gauge between the wheel, and they push out pneumatically based on the air that's applied to them, and they squeeze the wheel against the rail. So you hear that squealing, that's the retarder slowing the car down. Now we've got a hump computer, and we have radars, these 2 smaller little towers right here in each group. It measures entrance and exit speed. So it tells you based on the weight of that car, generally how full the track is, how many cars are in that track, what type of speed you need this car to be going. When it comes out of the master retarder, then it measures that exit speed. It'll measure that exit speed and measure it as an entrance speed coming into this to tell how much this final retarder needs to squeeze. The idea being, you're humping into a bull track. The contour of that track is like this, so the car comes in and it slows down, and there's ultimately another type of retarder called an inert retarder down at that end. So that's how the cars don't go out of the other end. But based on how full the track is, it determines what type of speed it needs to be going once it gets down into the rail. Yes?
I don't know which track to go on.
So, all right, yeah, good question. So we build trains for all different types of destinations, right? We have yards all over the United States. So we assign, based on where that car needs to go, where that customer orders that car to, we have a yard in that vicinity of the United States that we have a yard, and we destine that, we put the destination on that car. So, and that's a yard block. So these bulkhead flats could be going to North Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. So in this case, it's probably going. I don't know where it's going actually, but each track is associated with that yard block or with that destination, and we combine those to build a train to go in that general area. Okay, so when we build a train that goes to Fort Worth, we build a train that has Houston cars. We build a train that has cars that will set out on the Wade. It'll set out at Parsons, Kansas City, Topeka, all along the route. You know what I mean? So when I talk about we put other places out of jobs, or we put other places out of business, it's because we're doing that work, making that train for those downline locations. So yeah,
So like when this one's going up, they're not all going to the same track.
they're not all going to the same track off of that cut of cars. The computer takes the definition. The computer has each car's destination listed as, okay, that's a North Little Rock, that's a Topeka, that's a Fort Worth, that's a Chicago, that's a Council Bluffs, yada yada yada. So then it based on which track it's assigned to, then it throws those switches automatically. That's what I guess you're getting at. So we've got a computer that with this compressed air system will throw the switches as well.
So the original list is written in by what's called a yard master, right? So like the yard master will put the original list in, saying, okay, let's say the PRNP, the Proviso to North Platte. Okay, the NPRNP 30. He'll put that in, and it knows just by the train list where the cars need to go on what track. So, I mean, technology is pretty amazing. We're actually getting ready to put a new system in that Kyle invented. So I don't know.
That's what can't be him.
So the new system they're putting
Thought maybe it
in
was over there.
we'll be able to put the what's called a speed selector on the RCL locomotive in one speed, and the locomotive itself will adjust knowing how fast or
See,
slow
they're
it
pulling
needs to go to get that
them
car over the hill. So it's a great system. We're able to hump more cars. So what we're going to come up next to, where we're going to come on to next, is our North Platte diesel facility. It is one of the largest diesel facilities, repair facilities on the system. It has 11 tracks. I believe Wade said you can fit 5 Husker football fields in there. So we're actually here in North Platte. The only thing we don't do in North Platte locomotives is repaint or actually do a complete engine removal and replace. Other than that, we do everything else. We have what's called a draw pit, where we can actually take the wheels out from underneath the locomotive and replace them with brand new wheels. So I was actually fortunate to work in the locomotive shop for about 5 years. And then I decided, I met Kyle and I was like, I want to be friends with you. So interesting fact, Kyle is a fully licensed author. He's got his PhD, right? He's got his MD. He's an MD for real. He's a real true doctor who works with the river. Yeah, that's because he met me. So he's like, I don't want to do that. I want to come work out with you, Jerry. He's like, I know I want to work with you too. So like I said, they have 11 tracks. Coming up on the south side, you're going to see what's called a gondola car with some pyramid looking stuff on it. Those are all metal shavings from the wheels off the locomotive. What happens there, if you look up, you see 9, 10, and 11. They have what's called a wheel true machine. What we do is we put the locomotives on there and ensure that all the locomotive wheels are the same size. So if they're not the same size, what we have to do is we have to do what's called cut the wheels to ensure that they're all the same size. Sometimes you have wheels that are maybe 6 months old, and you have wheels that are a little bit older than that, but they need replaced, damaged, something like that. Well, instead of putting all new 6 wheels, you'll put what's called a 42-inch wheel on it, and you'll cut it down to 40 inches to match the rest of the wheels. Underneath that UP sign, that's all metal shavings from locomotive wheels. So about a week and a half, they fill one of those up. So they're constantly moving them. The way the operation works here at the shop is on the north side of here is what's called the inbounds. They'll bring them in, they'll inspect them, they'll fuel and sand them, and if they need repair, they will come to the east side of the shop here. You have tracks 1 through 11. Track 1 is for your maintenance. 2, 3 will be your electrical work. 4 is your drop pit, so that's where they'll actually replace the wheels. Your 5, 6, 7 is what's called, 6 is out of service. So your 7, 8, 9 is what's called your heavy. That's where they'll actually replace cylinders. They'll replace not the whole motor, but they'll replace parts in the motor, all stuff like that. Track 6 there is when we're fortunate, or when we want to play Wreck and Ralph and we wreck the locomotives, that's where they take them and repair those. And it happens. We do play Wreck and Ralph. I hope nobody's recording because I'm not going to mention that. So anyway, what happens is they come to east to west. They come to the east side broken, and they go to the west side fixed. So they'll go through the shop once they're on the west side. At that point, they'll be taking what's called the departures and used for trains. These locomotives you see here that we just passed, those are all stored locomotives. They're either stored because the cost to perform the maintenance, or they're too old and we don't use that style anymore. So they'll just put them into storage. Let's see what else we got. Other than that, I believe that's about all we have. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, man. For building a train? That I don't know. I'm steel. A lot of steel. So, you had a question? No. So, So North Platte is so efficient that they don't have enough time to do graffiti in North Platte. So it's always done somewhere else and brought to North Platte. So just because I live in LA, it had nothing to do with it. But anyway, so the graffiti and stuff, obviously it's a fine because you're on company property, so there's no trespassing. But as far as trying to catch someone and prosecuting, there's nothing we can really do. So actually in Omaha there is a museum dedicated to all cars. You'll be amazed on some of the nice art you see. As crazy as that sounds, you really, yeah. No, absolutely not. Go ahead.
If I want to work this kind of now, if I want to work here, what studies do I need to have or what are
You want a job?
I'm asking what
Oh no, but I'm asking you want a job. If you want to apply for Union Pacific, just go to uprr.com/jobs, and then you can be a doctor to an associate degree. So, I mean, I barely graduated high school without cheating, but anyway, that's not what it is. So, yeah, it doesn't matter. As long as you have each high school diploma or equivalent GED, you're able. So, and we'll train you. Any other questions? Everybody good? Thank you all. Hope you all enjoyed it.